Hey people, ancient legend is over here by the holy city there's a place called Gibeon, and there's a back alley bar room inhabited by the Lesbos that's called Hell Ketch Haziwarum, which is in Gibeon. And so I tell you all the names in the Bible, they always have a reason. And I was looking at this in the Greek, in the Hebrew, and in the Latin, and it had different names. I was wondering. I never look at King James, very seldom. This might be the second time. I was just wondering what he has to say, and now that I'm better understanding Latin, I'm starting to understand how King James is writ. But this story says an Abner, in the Hebrew, and it'd be a Vav, and a Benner, the son of, is going to read a Benner. It's going to be a Benner. You're missing the poetry in there. And it means a has-been. A Benner, old broken tool. And when it's a Benner, it's dead. It's buried. And when I caught this at the last place where this Ishboset comes up. And this is Lisbo. And they don't always follow, but usually if it says to Ishboset, in the Hebrew the word would be a lesbo, the Lesbos. And Lesbos means to man shame. But the story is that 12 of Benjamin's men got up pertaining to the Lesbos and to man shame the son of Saul and 12 of the servants of David. And they caught everyone by his fellow by the head and thrust his sword in his fellow's side. They all fell down together. Why, that place was called Hell Ketch Haziwarum, which is in give on. The B is a V, to give on. Wherever I catch him, he's going to catch hell. And so this is going to give you a better idea of what, and thrust his sword. That's the cherubim. And in the Hebrew, he's going to put clues throughout here to how to read this word. And once you see that all the names, they all have a meaning. A Benner is a father light and the sunlight. And all the names connect with the stories. And you better understand that this isn't supposed to be taken literally. It's the language. It's trying to put the language together, not a history. And so this is the first time this comes up in 2 Samuel 2, and it talks about him just 2 chapters, I think. In the Greek, they call that place Tupolin, and they're making fun of the Hebrew word, for the pole. It means tent people, temporaries. To a polin. A lenum here is ton. To where they pitch their tent. From the polinumist here on the epibowl. That's like the Super Bowl, a epi on top, a full bowl on the estivin, and festivus happily, and the estivin happily in gave on. I will give you this boot happily, the estivin gave on, and from here is to a big bowl on happily and gave on, a portion of the plotters. In Latin they say that the vocatum Q, the name of this place was the Ager Robustorum, the robustorum, that big strong auger. And they say that translates to the field of the mighty. But when you see rum on the end of a word, that's ancient Navy word. It meant your daily pay, your rations. And so a robustorum, is big money, big pay, the big money people, the high dollar folks, the robustorum, the field of the rich. In Hebrew, this place was called chalked, CHLQT, and chalked, and the crime, the CHRYM, and chalked the crime. back about 8,000 years ago, when there was a crime, before they moved the bodies, somebody would come in and chalk the crime so they have time to study it later. And chalk the crime has serve, give of win. The serve, give of win, his job is to investigate of murder. And a fur, and called his name. And a fur'll come hide. And chalked the crime, a serve, give of win. And so it looked like all the crime lords had come together. And when we see the Greek word for civil war, we'll get a better idea, because the Greek word for between is the names. The civil war of the names of inner who of. And names meaning power. The war of the power of inner who of. And so it's talking about some old thugs, and so which, the double A is a YA. Which you been rubbing her? Which you been rubbing her is when you encroaching on my territory. A thorn in my saddle rubbing. A piece of machinery that doesn't have clearance. It's rubbing. And which you been rubbing her? And the word, I say the OBD, the B in the OBD reads as a R. It's where the word Lord come from, and when you was served, to serve the Lord. And the word, and the AI becomes a U, and it's the word just, J-U-S, and just best spin. And you just best spin getting on out of here. When you hear old rednecks say that, that's because he was educated in Hebrew. And the word just best been. You've been over here encroaching, you've been rubbing up on my property lines, moving my markers, and the word you just best been. And ben's all my Ching. That's the Chinese dynasty of the merchants, the MM, my Ching Magan. Not the vagabonds, but the Magavon. Those big money tent people from the Silk Road, a Mai Ching Magavon. And wide of, the WI and the VA reads as a DE or a TE, a wide of EV, WIDEV, and wide of in share, wide of in share, why the worded addicts of. The word of addicts of is the Latin, and God said, and dicts of, wide of in share who the worded addicts of, the word of command, who pigs 'em all averst give of win. Who pigs 'em all. A hog wants all, was eat everything. And the pigs is also the end, the last month. And who pigs 'em all averst give of win. Each do, both of them, each one separately, all together, each do. They all together who pigs 'em in all versed give of win. Wise of veil all averse. Aversum is a veil, all aversum is. A veil is a wall, a W-A-L-E or a V-A-L-E, something separating vision, covering. Who pigs 'em all versed give of when each do. How's a veil all aversums? Aversums, the ones on the other side, averse, looking at each other. All aversums, the veil all aversums, the wall all aversums, on this side and on this side. And the yammer of inner all, and and the word of interal instead of interal. And then the VA, reading is a DE, and it's the IDE. And the word instead of inner, the allied, all IDEB, all ID'd in. The allied by come. The word of inner allied by come when. Come when, the sign of Cain. And letterized now. Come when. And so all the allies are the ones that you see a half of a sun on. These are all the allies of Mu. Oh, I got a folder, a couple movies on that, The Land of Mu. But it means when. When you're looking at half the sun, I was telling you that movie yesterday, that's the mark of when. When you're shooting stars, you're shooting for the center. And so when you see half the sun on the horizon, that's the mark of when. That's daybreak. The word of inner allied by come when. Let arise now. The rising sun. Is interim who shook will pawn. Everybody coming in the interim who shake. Give them the shakedown. Complete and thorough shakedown. Make sure they ain't got no blade. Who shake will place in. Why, how the word, the Yammerite by come. An ite is that type of person, and a yammer is the word ite, the person speaking by come to. So it looks like you got 12 Chinamen over there pushing on your border. And so what their care was so they arose and went over by number 2 and 10 from Benjamin. And this is why come, how come, and then the double vav, is reading is a why or how job, or the wage, the WIJ, the wage of, his job of a rub, the rubums aspersion. The rubums aspersion. Those that are rubbing up against our borders, and we're going to send down who the job of rubum aspersum. Get rid of them son of a bitches. Assure a living 'em in will was best. Will was best, get your ass down the road, And will was best Ben. Best Ben. Sent best Ben down there. Will Ish Obeth, son of Saul, was best Ben's all. Assign 'em, to see the sign. Assign 'em assure. And, the OBD reading is the ORD. And assure 'em or did. Order, ordered, and ordered what? Ordered what? From ordered what? And which is few was. And so this is where they're giving a hint of what this word meant down here, what they called the place. And you might read this as, and which is few was in rows, and not many allies rose. And if you read it with the mark here, it tells you why, and which is few was, and then backwards the double S reads as a Y, and then IA reads as a U, and which was few was of's hive, not many bees in the hive. You see that's the base word for the chew, your brothers. You didn't have a lot of brothers with you. Which is few was you of's hive in rows, and not many brothers come to back you up. And rows are of, the OE is the odal, replace it with the O vav of, and rows are of, then a double vav, or use the I, how, a cheering, this is where your word the cherubim comes from, and who's cheering you on? The cheering of its drove, the DROV, of its drove, his side of his opponent, to drive him out. and the cheering of its drove. Why applaud each two? This is where your word applaud come from. And the crowd is cheering you on, and who applaud. And it's because of the drove, in its drove. And cheering of its drove. Why applaud each two? They applaud. You want me to kill him, or shall he live? And it all works on the applaud. The applaud each two. And a fur all'em come hide, and chalked the crime. Assure Bagavon. So the cherubim comes from this word, the chair, the cheering. Before you thrust your sword, you listen for the crowd. Do the crowd want you to let him live, or are they cheering? Go ahead and stab your sword. Thrust that sword up in them. And the cheering of, all those people in the stands just cheering him on. Go ahead and gut him. But not looking into, why did the king put this person down there to be gutted in the first place? The cherubim, the cherub in is, the cheering of its drove. The people, the cherubim is the mass of ignorant people. And this is hard to catch, but you see the double valve here. This makes this the Y. And it's hard to get rid of this because it's not flu, it's applaud. It's where your word applaud come from. And the cheering of its drove, who applaud. And so applaud would be the one, who's they're cheering for. He's the one with the knife. You want me to cut him or not? Who applaud. And where your word, applaud coming from. The applaud each two. So I'm sure you'll see that somewhere else in this word starting with an A to read backwards. The applaud. Or attack here telling you to read it backwards. The applaud each two. And a furlong come a hide. This is the E-I and the V is a T or a D. E. Not sure. A hide. The height. To them come height. Chalked. It's the crime. Chalk the crime. It means, if a crime has been chalked, it means somebody was dead there. And that person was certainly he was a Bagavon. He's got a bag. He's not from here. He's a traveler. The Bagavon. And so there was, this is coming from the same word as yea in the beginning. God said, let there be, and there was. But this is a day, the D-E-Y, a day. So it came that day. A day, them'll come. Them, E-T-H-E-M, those people, them to come. Their day will come. And a day them'll come of fish had made by 'em. And they'd avenge. T-H-E-Y and D. They would avenge. And favener and dense. The D-E-N-S, the double I. I believe the first one reading is a E, a dense. Thick and not real smart. And the men. And favener dense is a lipping. Not really ruling, just the head of the ruler. Is lipping. The one speaking what's being told is a lipping ordered what? The ordered what? A day will come the fish had made. The day that the fish had made. The fish hat. Fish hat. When God puts on a fish hat, God is all. And so when he puts on a fish hat, he becomes official. The official word in forever, ever since they've been writing, this is what they've been writing. The dude with the fish hat is the ruler. And a day will come the fish hat made. By hid who, H-I-D-E-U, hid who in jip, who ripped you off when you got beat. And by hid who in jip of inner dents is er a lipping or it what. So I'm gonna cut this off here, and I'm sure I missed it often. This VA is something I just learned within the past month, and like I say, it turns into a TE or a DE, and I'm sure I missed it many times. I'm sure within the next month I'll never miss it again. I'll see it every time, because it surely, it puts it out there, the dents. That's who the men are. You try to spell it out for them and they just can't get it. And is er lipping. Lipping means, just the head of the ruler. God ain't got no sense. Just saying what's being told to say. It's just a face to put on, because they damn sure don't want the real face that's actually ruling. Nobody wants that face there. They're going to hate it when they see who actually rules. And the dents is er lipping or it what. But I guess the greatest thing to take out of this is, the origin of the word lesbo, and lesbian, the man shame. And it's actually meaning my cousin Billy Bob, who's fixing to bust that ass, Will was best Ben. My cousin Will was best Ben will bust your ass if you don't best Ben getting on out of here. And I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.